The woman who didn't want to be free. Some experiences in life never leave you. Sure, you don't think about them every day, but years later, if someone asks the right question, your mind starts remembering, and they come back as clear as if they happened yesterday. This is one of those stories. It happened around 1993 when I was working at a Christian television network in Midland, Texas. Back then, we produced television programs every day. We had a pretty large staff and a whole bunch of volunteers, and our prayer room was one of the busiest places in the building. There were about 20 phone lines dedicated to prayer requests and 20 people answering those prayer lines. So every day, people called about sickness, marriage problems, financial struggles, depression, addictions, and every other kind of hardship you can imagine. Okay, during that season of my life, I had somehow developed a reputation as someone that people would call when they believed they were dealing with demonic oppression or unusual spiritual problems, kind of like Ghostbusters. Whether I deserved that reputation or not, those were the calls that were sent to me. One evening, a volunteer came and found me. She said there was a young woman on the phone whose mother needed immediate help. So I took the call. It didn't take long to notice that the daughter sounded desperate. She explained the situation as best she could and asked if I would be able to come to their home right after work. I agreed. Now, I should make something clear. The television station didn't send me. This wasn't part of my job. I was simply responding as an individual trying to help a family in need. After I got off the phone, I decided to mention the situation to a young man named Darren, who also worked at the station, and I was mentoring him spiritually and biblically. When he heard where I was going, he asked if he could come. I was glad to have the company. Later, he asked if another friend of his named Lee could come as well. The first thing I asked him was if he was a believer. Finding out he was, I told him yes. So after work, the three of us headed toward West Odessa. It was about a 30-minute drive. The sun was beginning to go down when we arrived. As soon as I stepped out of the vehicle, I noticed something unusual. There was salt spread around parts of the house, along the window sills, near the doorway. I didn't know why, but I remember thinking that somebody in this house had already been fighting something long before we arrived. So, the daughter invited us inside. Everyone was polite, but there was this heaviness in the room. It was thick, a sort of tension that was difficult to explain. Eventually, the mother was brought in. I had her sit in a chair directly in front of me. Before praying about anything, I wanted to hear her story. You really need to know the backstory sometimes. At first, she spoke Spanish. I asked if she would be willing to speak English so the two young men with me could understand as well. She agreed. Then she began telling us what had happened. She said that years earlier she started hearing a voice, not her own thoughts, not ordinary self-talk, a separate voice, an outside personality. She explained that at first it frightened her, but it didn't threaten her. It didn't demand anything. Instead, it became helpful. The voice would give advice. Small things, simple things. If she was carrying something heavy, it would tell her to be careful. If she was worried, it would comfort her. If she felt lonely, it would talk with her. Over time, she began trusting it. Month after month, year after year, she knew its name. It had a first name and a last name, though I don't remember it now. It was a man's name. She talked about it the same way someone might talk about a close friend, or even like a boyfriend. Then the relationship became romantic, at least from her perspective. She described conversations, affection, and eventually encounters at night that she believed were real. I remember sitting there listening and struggling to process what I was hearing. Then the story took a darker turn. The voice told her there were other spirits nearby, cruel spirits, dangerous spirits, but he said he would protect her. One night he came to her in a panic, all flustered. He said they were coming, and when they arrived, she must not resist. If she fought back, he said they would kill her. She needed to submit and endure whatever happened. What she described next was horrifying. She explained how these spirits assaulted her violently. When it was over, the friendly spirit returned. He comforted her, consoled her, told her she had done the right thing. Then a month later, it happened again. And again, and again. The sad thing is that this cycle continued for years. The protector and the tormentor somehow occupying the same story. I remember thinking, how could she not see it? But then I realized something. People trapped in abusive relationships often can't see what everyone else sees. The person causing the pain becomes the same person providing comfort afterward. And that's exactly what seemed to be happening here. So, we had been there for at least an hour when something strange happened. A cat showed up at the front door. It started hissing, growling. Its fur stood up. This crazy animal became so agitated that it jumped onto the screen door and hung there with its claws. Everybody in the room saw it. The daughter finally shut the door. But the atmosphere in the room had changed. Then I asked the woman a simple question. Do you want to be free? She hesitated. Then she asked something I never expected. She asked if we could get rid of the violent spirits, but allow her to keep the nice one. That was when I realized just how deep the deception had gone. I told her there wasn't a nice one. The one she trusted was part of the entire scheme. She resisted that idea strongly, but eventually she admitted something. Sometimes the spirit she trusted participated in the assaults too. Then afterward, he would comfort her. Even hearing herself say it, she still couldn't see the contradiction. Eventually, she agreed to prayer. We moved her chair into the center of the room, and I began praying. What happened next is difficult to explain. At some point, she slipped from the chair onto the floor, not exactly falling, more like pouring out of it. Once on the floor, she began moving in a way that reminded me of a snake. I knelt beside her, placed my hand on her head even as it swayed from side to side, and continued praying. Minutes passed, then more minutes, then more. At one point, I shifted my body around and looked up. Darren and Lee were standing nearby with their eyes closed and their arms stretched toward us. I told them to come closer. I needed agreement, so they placed their hands on mine, and the three of us prayed together. Pretty loudly, earnestly, with my eyes open for most of it. We prayed for a long time. Eventually things became quiet. I asked her how she felt, and her answer told me everything. She said she didn't want him to leave. She needed him. I tried one last time to explain what was happening. Her daughter pleaded with her too. But freedom cannot be forced on someone who still loves their chains. In the end, she chose to keep the relationship. There was nothing more we could do. We prayed for the family, said our goodbyes, and headed for the front door. When we stepped outside, it felt like the world had changed. The sky was dark. Dust was blowing everywhere. The wind was howling. The atmosphere felt almost unreal. We ran across the street toward the van. Just as we reached it, The sky opened up. Rain poured down so hard the windshield wipers couldn't keep up. We started driving. Before long, the van died. We prayed, waited, started it again. A little farther down the road, it died again. Then again and again. 4 times before we finally got out of Odessa. That night, I went home exhausted. Sometime during the night, I woke up and immediately sensed what I can only describe as an evil presence in the room. My heart was pounding. I tried to speak, but I couldn't. My mouth felt frozen. I remember using my hands to force my jaw open and closed while praying silently in my mind. Eventually, whatever was there lifted. The next morning, I went to work. Later that day, a call came in for me. I picked up the phone. A man's voice spoke one sentence. "How did you like what happened last night?" Then he hung up. I never learned who it was. I never heard the voice again. And I've never forgotten the experience. Looking back now, after all these years, what stays with me isn't fear. It's a lesson. Evil rarely introduces itself as evil. It usually arrives as something helpful, something comforting, something that claims to care about you. That's what makes deception so dangerous. The most dangerous lies are not the ones that frighten us. They're the ones that convince us they're our friend. And that lesson has stayed with me ever since.